Candidates, you will be getting 1 minute to answer most of these questions. When you have 30 seconds left, you'll see the yellow sign that will go up in front of you. And when you're basically out of time, you'll get the 10 red second sign, and that means you need to wrap it up within the next 10 seconds to finish your comment. So the first section of the forum begins with the candidates' opening statements. They will be given 2 minutes for those statements. I want to let the audience know that it's possible that these gentlemen will be using these statements, recorded statements, for the messages that they will be presenting to our community that we'll be putting online. So forgive them for the first couple of minutes. They're going to probably look directly into the camera for their opening statements. At the end of the evening, each finalist will also get another chance to speak with a 1 minute closing remark. So let's begin. As we listen, just wave your question cards in the air so we can start picking those up. And this evening we're going to begin with Dr. Gregory Ewing. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ewing, who comes from Marietta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. It's the heart of Cobb County, Georgia. Dr. Ewing has been the Chief Accountability and Research Officer for the Cobb County School District for the last 2 years. Previously, he spent 10 years as the district's Curriculum and Instruction Supervisor. In total, Dr. Ewing has 29 years of educational experience as a teacher and administrator. He is also an assistant professor at Kennesaw State University in Georgia, where he has taught for 20 years. Please welcome Dr. Gregory Ewing, and you have 2 minutes, sir.
Well, first, good evening. Thank you for inviting us tonight, and I'd like to thank the members of the board for giving us this opportunity to speak in front of you. My name is Greg Ewing. I come to you from Marietta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, where I've worked in the same school district that I graduated from for the last 30 years. I spent 16 years in a classroom as a high school teacher, and then I moved into administration at the central office, starting out as a curriculum supervisor and moving up to a senior executive level cabinet position. My school district is a large school district. We have 116 schools, 112,000 students, 20,000 students who speak Spanish as a foreign language, 10,000 students who qualify for the ESOL program, and of those, 90% come from Mexico. My work in the last 4 to 5 years has been primarily on integrating those students into the school district so that they can be successful not only in their ESOL class, but in all classes. I'm nearing the end of my career in Cobb, and as I near the end of my career, I began looking around the nation to see what I was going to do next. And so when I saw your job posting, I thought your district looks a lot like the work that I've been doing. That's why I applied for your position. It's the only position I've applied for in 30 years, and I have to say, this is the only interview process I've been through in the last 30 years, so this has been good for me. I pledge to you, if I'm the person that the board chooses to come and work here with you, to move here, to become part of your community, to go to worship services here with you, to go to the ball games, to support your schools, to support your students, to support the staff, and to become part of your family, because I believe anyone you work with becomes part of your family. I thank you for allowing me to be here with you tonight, and I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Dr. Gregory Rodriguez, who is from Huntsville, Texas, which is north of Houston. Dr. Rodriguez has served the past year as the Deputy Superintendent for the Huntsville Independent School District. He has also served 5 years as an Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Accountability, and Director of Secondary Curriculum, Instruction, and Accountability for the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District in San Marcos, Texas. He has 17 years educational experience as a teacher and administrator. Please welcome Dr. Gregory Rodriguez.
Good evening. In most organizations today, we've been trained to ask the question, what's wrong with our organization, our business, our school, our team, and how can we fix it or make it better? We're conditioned and we're accustomed to repairing what we think is broken. This, in my opinion, is a demoralizing process. So in January of this year, I had the opportunity to meet a couple of students from Las Cruces. One of them is out in the audience here. And when I heard these two amazing students share their story about Las Cruces and about how they're preparing themselves for their future, I was really impressed with the eloquence and the intelligence of our students, and ultimately the experiences that they've had here at Las Cruces. But there was one point in the conversation when it turned to the A through F accountability system. And many of us have been trained to ask this question, what's wrong with our schools? So I'd like to propose that instead we should learn to ask two very different but powerful questions. I want you to ask, what's possible here? Who cares enough to imagine it? When we shift that question to who cares, it's inclusive in nature. We invite others into the conversation who are also passionate. So when I ask what's possible, it opens up a new possibility for our school district and new conversations about what can be. So good evening, buenas tardes. I'm Greg Rodriguez, and I'm here to propose a different question. I don't expect that we'll get the answer tonight, but I'd like for us to begin a conversation with this question. So my question does require us to stop and think deeply about what we really think of our schools. So I ask, what are your highest hopes for our children as a result of their time in our schools? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our third applicant is Dr. Arsenio Romero from Roswell, New Mexico. I think we all know where that is. Dr. Romero is the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Turnaround for the Roswell Independent School District. Dr. Romero worked for Las Cruces Public Schools from 2001 to 2014 in several administrative positions. He left LCPS for a position in the Roswell District, where he has served as Executive Director for School Turnaround and Assistant Superintendent for Assessment, Accountability, and Technology before taking on his current position. He has 20 years of educational experience as a teacher and administrator. Please welcome Dr. Arsenio Romero.
Hello, Las Cruces community. My name is Arsenio Romero. Thank you for coming here tonight. I was born and raised right here in New Mexico. I'm a husband to a wonderful school teacher and to 4 amazing children. My mother was a first grade teacher for 25 years, and I grew to have a heart of a teacher because I admired the strength and the love for both my mother and my spouse. I've worked for Las Cruces Public Schools since 2001. The last 2 years I've had the opportunity to work with the Roswell Independent School District. I also worked for New Mexico State University and Eastern New Mexico University as an assistant professor. This is really to help create the leaders of the future. I began my career right here in Las Cruces teaching at Mesilla Park Elementary, and then I returned to Las Cruces after my graduate schools to where I served as an assistant principal, a principal, and leader of many innovative programs right here in Las Cruces. Most recently, though, I've spent the last 2 years as the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction in Roswell, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to possibly come back to Las Cruces. My chief goal as an educator is to provide a caring and engaging, quality learning environment for all students. Preparing students for lifelong learning and success is always at the heart of my work. I believe that building strong relationships with all members of the Las Cruces community is one of the most important functions of a superintendent. During my career, I have emphasized the meaning of teamwork, cooperation, and communication. This is the foundation of this relationship. The foundation of this relationship is trust. I will be visible, accessible, and flexible as I work with students, parents, staff, and the community. You will find me to be both available and approachable as we work together to create an environment that is innovative and collaborative, ensuring a culture of collaboration between staff and choice learning environments for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we now move to the next section of the night, and that is your questions. Again, just wave if you have your card already filled out, and someone will come and get it from you. If there's something that's not quite clear, I will ask for a follow-up for that one answer. Otherwise, we'll just keep going in order and repeat the order, so not everyone has to be the same one to go first, and the League of Women Voters will help me with that. We'll begin with Dr. Rodriguez, and then we'll be going to Dr. Romero, and then back to Dr. Ewing. So we'll hopefully keep that cycle going. So one moment, I'm going to move to the next table. So the first question is to you, Dr. Rodriguez. Everybody wants equity in our schools. What does that look like to you, and how do you achieve that?
So equity often gets confused with equality. We can't divide the pie evenly when there's areas where we have more needs than others. To me, equity means that each person receives what they need We don't always get what we want, but we get what we need. And so it's important to understand when we talk about issues of equity, we also talk about issues of social justice. And so my idea of equity is one where we provide social justice and we provide an environment for our students where they are seen in the same light no matter their circumstance or their background. So when we talk about equity, we talk about delivering what we need to meet our students' needs.
Thank you. Dr. Romero.
I've had the opportunity to be a part of many schools in this school district, and through that opportunity, I've been able to really know the strengths that these schools bring and the cultures that these schools have. And because of that, I've also had the opportunity to be in the know when it comes to what types of issues these schools need to have to be able to be successful. And with that, they all have different needs, and we need to be able to be responsive to those needs. And that always doesn't mean that everything is equal. It means that we need to have equity built into that process. So as I move forward into this position, I feel like this is going to be an opportunity that I can help push those schools forward to be able to help them with their goals as they are creating successful environments for those students.
Thank you. And Dr. Ewing?
When I think of equity, the first word I think of is transparency. The first thing everyone wants to know is what are the resources, where are they located, where are the teachers, where are the allotments, where are they located. So the first thing I think we have to do is be transparent. Then we have to begin identifying what the needs are in each individual school by a needs assessment or by an evaluation of that school. So the first thing I think you have to do is you have to be transparent, you have to be open to dialogue, you have to be open to discussion, you have to show everyone the cards on the table. Then once you see the resources that are there, you begin having a conversation about equity and what is fair in distribution. And in the end, we all are after the same thing. We want what's best for our students to take our students to the next level. And I firmly believe in that.
Thank you. Our next question is, how do you see the business community interfacing with schools? Dr. Romero.
Business community is vital to the importance of the schools, and as we move forward with the success, it is important to have that open dialogue with businesses because they are very informative to what students are going to be like as they move into the workforce. With the opportunities that we have today through CT coursework and dual credit coursework, we want to be very responsive to the needs of our community as we move forward 3, 5, 10, 15 years into the future, so that as these students leave us, as they graduate from high school, they can become productive members of the community. And so it's important to keep that dialogue and keep them informed and part of the discussions as we move forward, as we create these goals for our students.
Thank you. Dr. Ewing?
Well, first I'm going to say to you, businesses are important to me as the leader because I need to go to businesses when I need help, when I need assistance. When you look at a budget and a budget crisis and when budgets are tight, businesses are willing to do things for schools. Sometimes they have extra funding. Sometimes they want to give that funding for a tax break. So the first thing you have to do is make a relationship with the businesses in your community. You can't be afraid to ask for help and you can't be afraid to show them what you're doing. So what I do in my school district is we make a concerted effort to show businesses what we're doing, what we're about, and where we need the help, where we need the assistance. From that, I think you also use businesses as a teaching tool in classrooms, a teaching tool with teachers, a teaching tool with parents, because the ultimate goal is for everyone going through school to ultimately end up as a productive member of the workforce at some time.
And Dr. Rodriguez.
So when I think of partnerships with business, I don't just think about asking businesses what they can do for us, but I think of asking them what our students can do for them. I think that there are a multitude of opportunities out there for us to engage with business, and that could look anything like us taking our student audiovisual production, producing commercials for local businesses here in the surrounding borderlands. I think that because we also have a high number of bilingual students, that we could use those as an asset to help contribute to businesses as well. On the other side, businesses can provide our students externships and internships that would provide them those experiences they need to be successful after they complete their CTE pathway.
Thank you. Our next question, actually, if I could just digress just momentarily, I wanted to introduce Mayor Nora Barraza from Mesilla is here. So thank you for coming, Nora. Wherever you are, give us a wave. Way in the back. Thank you very much. Candidates, what exactly will you do to support students with special needs? And how will you accomplish this with funding the way it is? We must be the voice for those who can't express themselves. Dr. Ewing?
I had the opportunity to speak with staff today, and one of the questions came from the executive director of special ed, and my first answer was this: after 30 years in this business, if I've learned anything, it's you don't touch special ed unless you go to those special ed specialists and ask them first. They're the ones who know the program, they're the ones who know the students, and they're the ones who know the needs from IEPs and federal regulations. So I think the first thing we do is we engage the stakeholders. We engage what the special ed recommendations are coming to us as administrators, coming to us from a budget perspective, and then we always have to be mindful of what the IEP requests are, what the parent requests are, and what the needs of the students are. But first and foremost, you have to make an informed decision, and to do that, you have to have buy-in from the group that you're talking to. And in this case, you must have buy-in, and you must have the expertise of the people who are running the program. And that would be your special ed person. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rodriguez?
So, having married my high school sweetheart, who also happens to be a special educator, I understand that sometimes special educators come to the business with an even bigger heart than most teachers, because they really take the individual needs of the student into account. So I would see us meeting our students' needs by making sure that we provide the opportunities for them to be in the least restrictive environment, knowing that budgets are difficult and hard for us to overcome, but seeking out and making sure that we're spending our federal funds and expending our local funds to best meet the needs of our special education students.
And Dr. Romero?
This is an area that's very near and dear to my heart. Not only do I very much support special education, but I also sit on the other side of the table as a parent. I have a daughter with special needs. And because of that, I feel that it is definitely something that needs to be brought to the forefront. With that, children need to be able to have their needs met on an individual basis. And what that means is they need to be able to have resources in the classroom to be able to be successful. They need to be able to have access to their peers so that they can grow socially. And what I can do to be able to make that happen is to be able to support those programs and support those teachers with those resources to make that possible. Special education is absolutely an important, vital part of our public education. And to do that, we need to make sure that we continue that support as we move forward. Thank you.
We have two questions, and I'll just sort of combine them. One is, what would your first priority be for moving our district forward? The other question is similar. What would be your first goal as superintendent? Dr. Rodriguez.
60 seconds, right? So what I would do, of course, is to hit the ground learning, not hit the ground running. I really have to get to know the people of Las Cruces, to get to know my staff, get to know my cabinet, and spend the first 100 days doing a needs assessment. Then catapulting from that needs assessment, I would look at really digging in and answering the question that I asked in my opening remarks with the community. So having those community forums, those open opportunities for us to have those conversations and start the work towards building a unified and strategic plan for our district.
Dr. Romero?
Again, I agree with this. It's something where we actually need to come together as a community and create a strategic plan. And this is the time where we need to stop and pause to be able to get those people together. And when I talk about those people, I'm talking about teachers, educators, principals, custodians, secretaries. But also I'm talking about parents and business leaders to be able to come together and discuss, are we headed in the right direction, and really start to design our new goals, our new missions as we move forward. And once we do that, we're able to then allocate the right resources to be able to meet those goals. It can be a very exciting time as we move forward, because we're going to be doing that together as a Las Cruces community. Thank you.
And Dr. Ewing?
I completely agree with both my colleagues. I think for me, the first 90 days has to be a period of look, listen, and learn. I have to hit the ground looking, listening, and learning, and that's from multiple stakeholders, whether it's students, whether it's parents, whether it's community members, whether it's teachers, principals, central office staff, and of course the executive cabinet. Any superintendent who comes to you shouldn't come with his own goals and his own agenda. The superintendent should come willing to listen to you for your goals and your own agenda. You take that information that you gather from a needs assessment, as the colleagues are describing earlier, and then you begin to form what your plan is. And in the educational world, we call that a strategic plan.
Thank you. Dr. Mara, we'll start with you. How will you ensure that all employees feel valued?
Excellent question. You know, being a part of this community and getting to know many of the valued members of this community, I've actually been able to develop some wonderful relationships. And it's important to be able to have an environment where people can be able to express their feelings about how things are going, express what's happening on a day-to-day basis, so that we can grow and move forward. It's all about that communication. And to do that, we need to be able to have an environment where it's not set in fear. It's not set in retribution. And so I really feel that it's important to be able to create that culture, that environment, so that we can promote that communication. And that's the only way that we're going to improve and really get through some of those tough conversations as we move forward to improve instruction and education for our students.
Dr. Ewing?
I think that first starts with me. I have to emulate that. I have to emulate that with the staff I supervise and with everyone I come into contact with. In Atlanta, we have a saying, we don't wear coats very often because we're always hot, but I like to use the word coat. I have to emulate group cooperation, group openness, group atmosphere, and group trust. You have to have a relationship with your staff that you're working with in order for you to have any type of sustainability, regardless of the organization, and it starts at the top. It starts at the top with the leader making the other individuals under him comfortable, and then from there making the principals comfortable, who in turn will make the teaching staff comfortable.
And Dr. Rodriguez?
I happen to disagree a little bit. I think it starts at the bottom. It starts with listening, with understanding, and with having compassion for, I heard the story today of our educational aides who have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And they may feel underappreciated, and we can't always show appreciation monetarily. So sometimes we show appreciation through recognition. I would imagine that every one of our board meetings would have a recognition of an employee and invite the families in, the employee's family, to see their mother, their sister being honored by the community, to say that we value you and that we know that the job that you do is difficult, and that the small token of our esteem could be to recognize you publicly. Also, again, listening and having that voice, the people's voices heard. So we have representative unions and representative teacher and principal administrator groups that I'd be looking forward to sitting down to and listening.
Okay, did we go through the cycle on that? Thank you. The next question is, do you support or oppose value-added models for evaluating teachers using test scores? And we begin with Dr. Ewing.
I've been reading and studying your teacher model and your teacher evaluation instrument. I can say to you that I spent my graduate days studying statistics, and I learned 2 words. Those words were reliability and validity. I can't find reliability or validity in the instrument that's being used for you. So I see a major issue. I also see that we have to come together as a group and as a unit to say these are our concerns and this is why these are our concerns. That has to be done not only from my standing, but it has to be done with the support of the board, with the support of the teachers, with the support of the community. But I think it's time for us to stand up. I think it's time for us to look at the individuals who are making rules for teachers and say, in the old days, teachers gave tests. We're never afraid to give a test. We're never afraid to take a test. But a test was used so that we could enhance instruction in the classroom. Today, those test results are being turned into a sword, and that sword's being used on you to slaughter you and your schools. And enough is enough. Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez?
That's an easy question. I'm absolutely against that. When you place the emphasis on testing, that's where you place the emphasis on teaching and learning. And I think that we've gone way too far into trying to use that one assessment to inform how we evaluate teachers, which I believe is absolutely wrong, because I too study statistics and know that that's also not a valid or reliable assessment of our teachers and the work that they put into the classrooms every day. So I would approach this as, again, our voices, when they come together, are much louder. And so I would imagine that we would at one point stop telling the legislature and the governor and the secretary what we're against, but actually go and tell them what we're about and what we're for, and taking a stand at that point and telling them that we truly value teaching and learning.
Dr. Romero.
The teacher effectiveness evaluation system is absolutely invalid, and there's a number of reasons for that. I've had the opportunity to work in this system for the last couple of years as it's been rolled out into the state. And so let me give you some specifics as why this is happening. One, it hasn't been around very long, and because of that, that's in itself creates an invalid system. But there's also so many other issues going on with this system because we're missing things like some of the data from year to year, which in turn also creates an invalid system. Also, there's just not enough support at the state level to be able to handle the amount of data that goes through because we have a large educational system, and this comes from the lack of servers, computers, and actually people to be able to process this data. It is absolutely imperative that we prepare ourselves as we move through this process. And what I mean by that is we need to be able to set Las Cruces Public Schools up into a position as we move into the future. In the next year or two, the process is going to change, and we want to make sure that we are in a position where we're influential to help with the decisions as we move into that change. Thank you.
Thank you. There's two questions we'll put together. New Mexico is going into a more drastic turn down economically. Belt tightening will have to happen again. What does belt tightening mean to you as leader of our district? The other question is, as we address budget shortfalls at the state level and make plans to make sure we continue to provide an excellent education to every student, please provide guidance as to how to solve this budgetary constraint. And we begin with Dr. Rodriguez.
So I would say that solving the budgetary constraint isn't one that a superintendent can do alone. It's going to take every constituent talking to their legislators, talking to the Capitol, and going in and making sure that they understand what our needs are. Now, you asked a question about belt tightening. I hope that wasn't personal, but as we tighten our belts, that means that we make difficult decisions that aren't always popular, but they shouldn't be decisions made alone. They're decisions that are made in consultation with the people that it will most impact. So given that budgets are tightening and constraints are getting more difficult, we have to take those constraints into consideration and always include the people it's going to impact.
Dr. Romero.
As you know, tomorrow starts a special session here in New Mexico, and this is going to be a very pivotal time for public schools as we move forward because they're going to be talking about budget. This is the big topic, and that talk of budget is going to directly affect schools. And so we're waiting to see what kind of information comes out of that. But I will be working with the legislature over the next couple of days to be able to be as informative as I can to help them, guide them in the right direction when it comes to the decisions that come out of this. When it comes to something that we can actually do now as we start to build our budget for this year and for next year, is we really want to get into a mode where we're starting to look at things item by item. There are so many things that happen at a district level where we've spent money and we do it because we've always done it. We also need to really take a critical look at the things that we spend and what kind of outcomes come out of it. And then from that, we need to be able to make those decisions to be able to make those cuts so we can put that money where it needs to be. That's really in the classrooms to be able to support teachers and to lower those class sizes. And so there's lots of hard decisions ahead of us, but together we can be able to tackle these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ewing.
Again, I'm going to agree with my colleagues. I think two words have to come forward. One, we have to talk about transparency. We have to be transparent with the budget. We have to show the stakeholders, the second word, what the budget looks like, where we are, what we have to do with the budget, and then we have to gain input from those stakeholders in what the decision will be. It should never be the decision of the superintendent. It should be the decision of the stakeholders, the community, the parents, the students, the teachers, the people who actually make up the school system. Those are the individuals who are going to be impacted by a budget decision. They should be involved in the budget decision.
Thank you. The next question is, describe your character. And we'll start with Dr. Romero.
I'm a person that's going to bring the best out in people. I'm going to be able to provide an environment that's going to be set up a system for collaboration between all those people that we work with. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of people in this district, a number of school leaders, and a number of teachers. And I've been given some pretty hefty challenges, but it's because of the work that we've done together, working with teachers, community, parents, staff, that we're able to tackle those challenges, and some amazing things have come out of those out of these challenges. And in the end, it always benefits students. And it's really, I'd like to give some of the credit to myself in that hopefully I'm able to create that environment to bring out the best in people. And I look forward to continue working with this community and the teachers and the students as we move forward. Thank you.
Dr. Ewing.
Sure. Well, first, believe it or not, as much as I enjoy talking and as much as I enjoy being in front of an audience, I really am an introvert. I am the quiet person in my family. But for me, I'm not afraid to take a chance. I'm not afraid to make a mistake. I'm not afraid to try something different or something new. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I never lie, but I always say to you, I'll give you all the information I have, just don't shoot the messenger with the information you're receiving. That works very well with my staff because at least everyone knows the same thing that I know. And then just like my colleagues, I do the same thing that all of us do in education. I work every day, my full-time job. I work at night teaching at the university. I've had 2 jobs for 30 years, and all along that time I've gone to school and added all those fancy degrees. So I'm driven. I'm driven to be the better person that I can be every day because that makes a difference with the people I work with.
And Dr. Rodriguez.
So when it comes to character, it really comes down to the values that you were given by the person that raised you. And I say the person because I was raised by my grandmother. And she taught me that your word is your bond. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And you work hard and you persevere no matter the circumstance. And those are some of the values that I was raised with. You know, being a superintendent to me means that you're humble enough to know that you don't know everything and that you're confident enough to show that you might know everything. So when I talk about integrity, that's one of my core values. It's one where you ask me today one thing, you're going to get the same answer next week. And it's because I always speak from my heart and I speak from what I believe.
Thank you. Our next question, I apologize in advance if I don't get it quite right. The question in Spanish is, ¿Cómo será su relación con la comunidad hispana? Is that somewhat correct how I said that? So, Dr. Ewing, do I need to translate the question?
I think I have it. Well, I was a foreign language teacher for 16 years, but I taught Latin and Italian. Later in my career, I learned in order to work with the Hispanic community, I needed to study Spanish. So, en español, cuando yo necesito hablar en español, yo puedo hablar en español, pero yo no tengo muchas palabras. Yo necesito ayudar cuando yo hablo en español. Okay, lo siento. That's about what I'll say on the microphone here for you. But what I've learned is I'm not afraid to talk. And I'm not afraid to make a connection with the Hispanic community. I have 20,000 students with 40,000 parents in my own school district. And I have to make that connection with them. And if breaking that first barrier involves me using Spanish to say hello to them, I'm certainly welcome to do that. But I'm also smart enough to know I can't be a translator at a conference because I don't want to translate the wrong information. And Hispanic families are very tough on their students, and I don't want any students getting a spanking based on something that I've said. So I know to keep a translator with me, but I know enough to get myself through the front door and get invited for a good meal. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rodriguez?
So I'll answer that question first by saying that Nelson Mandela says that when you want to get to a person's brain, you speak to them in a language they understand. But when you want to get to their heart, you speak to them in their language. So mi relación con la comunidad hispana será una que pueden comunicarse con lo que yo quiero decir con las familias y las familias también me pueden hablar. Y mi español está un poco mocho porque nunca tengo oportunidad de hablar en Huntsville, pero aquí en Las Cruces yo tengo mucho orgullo porque yo creo que voy a tener bastante oportunidades para hacer eso. Gracias.
And Dr. Romero?
Growing up in New Mexico, I know how important it is to be able to stick with your roots and your culture. I also know how important it is to be able to make those connections with the community and the different parts of that community. One of my greatest regrets I'm ever going to have is I'm that first generation that's not completely fluent in Spanish, and it's something that saddens me. because I know how important it is in this community. But I've been able to have these relationships with the families in Las Cruces that are native Spanish speakers for a number of years, and always been very successful with it. And the reason I can do that is because I make them feel valued and welcomed and important as we move forward in our conversations. It's something that I will continue to do. I value these families very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is, students face many challenges to achieve success. What do you see as their biggest challenge? Dr. Rodriguez.
I think students' biggest challenge is sometimes the lack of engagement in the classroom. I always tell my teachers there's two things you can control. First is the relationships you build with students, and second is the quality of work that you design for them. And if we don't build those relationships and design high-quality work, and when you design high-quality work for students, it really at the heart of that is we have to ask our students what motivates them, because everything else outside of the classroom is beyond our control. So a lot of us want to blame low performance on societal issues. Those are big needs in our community. Those are needs that community schools can address. But first and foremost, when you build positive relationships and there's a caring adult in the school building, students are more likely to succeed.
Dr. Romero?
There's many measures in which we decide and how we decide whether a school is successful or not, or whether a teacher is successful or not. And some of those things are based on these high-stakes assessments. There's so many other things out there that we should be looking at to show that picture of how valuable that school setting is in that classroom. The first thing we really want to look at to allow students to be successful is having that safe environment for students to be able to come into. To be able to create that environment that they want to be in on a daily basis. This is a place where they are going to grow and have peer interactions and build relationships with others. And that's the first thing we need to do, is make sure that they have that environment to be able to come into. This is an excellent facility that we're in today, and the students are able to come to the school in Yate and be able to participate in their education here, have a wonderful place to be able to do that. All students deserve that kind of setting. Thank you.
And Dr. Ewing.
I had a chance to speak with the students this morning, and I talked to them about having a rigorous curriculum versus a rigorous teacher. I was a teacher for 16 years. I taught a rigorous curriculum, but I was not a rigorous teacher. What do I mean by that? Do you have opportunities for advanced placement, advanced coursework, advanced knowledge? Do you have those courses and those offerings in your system? If I'm a great teacher, I learn how to make those easy for you, even though that's a rigorous curriculum. And so I think the first thing we have to do is look at the opportunities students have in front of them. And then any good teacher knows just what my colleagues are saying. The first thing we have to do is build a relationship with the students with whom we are interacting with each day.
Dr. Romero, how will you work with local law enforcement to ensure the safety of our children?
I have an excellent relationship with Las Cruces Police Department. I know many of them. I know many of them for many years. And because of that, I've worked with them in the public school setting. It's a very supportive relationship. It's something that I know that we will continue to embrace and have that relationship grow. The reason it's important is because they are able to provide a vital service to our schools. They help to provide, and that's what I talked about in that last question, is provide that safe environment for students. But it's important that I am able to keep that conversation going with them, because there's going to be things that happen in our school settings, and if I have that relationship built with them, it just allows for that school setting to continue to be safe, so that we can allow students to have that learning environment where they are able to grow, improve, and really be able to meet those goals that they have.
Dr. Ewing.
In my own school district, we've moved from having public safety officers in schools to actually having police officers in schools. We have our own school district police force. We've placed a police officer in every high school and every middle school. That's 16 high schools, 24 middle schools. We then have officers to rotate for the elementary schools. That's been pivotal in gaining security and safety in every school building. It's the first thing we think about every day when we come in the building. It should be the last thing on our minds when we leave, the safety of every child who's in front of us. For the police forces in my district, I live in a county that has 6 or 7 different cities. And so what we've done is we have offered Spanish classes to the police officers who are interacting with the Hispanic community. And that's been very successful.
Dr. Rodriguez?
So in my current position, I work very closely with the school resource officers in our school district. I'm also working with them to make sure that even though they're the first person we think of when it's 911 time, they're sometimes not thought of always in a positive light. Sometimes our parents are apprehensive about coming to schools where school resource officers are in the front of the building or seem to be guarding our schools. So I've really worked with our SROs or our school resource officers to make sure that they're building relationships with families and building relationships with our students so that they're seen as that first line in holding our safety and holding our schools safe as needed on a daily basis.
Thank you. Our next question is, what might your response be if given a situation where the schools and the school board disagree? Dr. Ewing.
Sure. Well, first of all, we have to remember, I am the only employee of the school board. So as the superintendent, I report directly to the school board. However, I am the supervisor of all schools and all employees in the district. So that puts me in a very unique position. If I'm a good leader, the first thing I do is establish a relationship with the school board. I give them full information under full transparency. Once you do that and once you have good communication, those issues tend to go away. But you can only do that by building a relationship and by being open and honest.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Would you repeat that question? Was it
I certainly will. What might your response be if given a situation where the schools and the school board disagree?
So the school board are elected representatives of the schools, and the schools are our community. So a lot of times when that disagreement arises, it's because, as Dr. Ewing said, there's a lack of communication. So I think that the role of the superintendent is to make sure that those lines of communication are clear and that the school board, as elected representatives of the school community, reflect the values of our schools and our school communities. So I would certainly establish those clear channels and make sure that it's understood that when there's a disagreement, it doesn't mean that we're at odds with each other, but it means that we're trying to work through our issues together.
And Dr. Romero.
Sometimes when we have disagreements and conflicts, actually better things can come out of that. When we work together as a community and we are able to offer our opinions and our insights and our experiences, always something better comes from that. Now, the school board has definitely a role that they play in this process of public schools in creating policy. Schools definitely have a role that they play in educating our students. And many times we all have the best intentions of doing what's best for kids, and sometimes those things don't match up. And that's where I would come in. I'm able to be that person to be able to relay the information back and forth and be able to keep those lines of collaboration open so that we can come to that resolution. There are going to be constituents in the community that go straight to the school board because there are things going on. There are going to be constituents in the community that go straight to the school principal or school teachers. And we need to be able to gather that all that information at the same time so that we can go forth and make the best decisions for our students.
Thank you. Our next question, I'll put two together if I could. Nationwide, there is a shortage of teachers, particularly in the areas of math, science, special ed, and bilingual education. How will you recruit the best and brightest to Las Cruces? Do you support alternative certification for people who have not attended an accredited teacher preparation program? And the next question is, what is your vision for addressing the shortage of highly qualified teachers entering the profession? And we begin with Dr. Rodriguez.
So you're right, that's a nationwide issue, particularly in math and science, and in Texas, it's with bilingual educators. The way you recruit the best to your district is that you exude a culture of one where we're all working towards our moral purpose. Everyone goes into teaching with the moral purpose of making students' lives better, of enriching those lives. And when we do that, we sometimes lose sight of that, and we have to remind ourselves that that's why we're here. And we have to build a culture where people feel like they're part of a family. Because when you love your family, you may disagree with them, you may not be able to get along with them, but you always come back and support them. And I think if we have a supportive culture, we can start to attract teachers here. Again, we have to be innovative in developing pathways with our educational aids to teacher certification. The other part of your question was about alternative certification. Yes, I would support that, particularly when it means whether a student's going to have a substitute in front of them or an alternative certified teacher.
Dr. Romero.
Times have changed. If we go back just 5 or 10 years, we had many teachers in the pool to be able to choose from. Las Cruces actually is a little bit of a gem because we have the relationships with the university here, and that helps. As we move away from the valley, though, it becomes harder and harder. And if I bring back my experiences now in Roswell, it is very difficult to hire some of those teachers that were mentioned earlier, specifically science, math, bilingual, and special education teachers. We have to be very innovative in how we are able to get these students to want to work for these districts. Las Cruces is also a special place, though, and because of that, this is a place where people want to come. It has many things that can come to teachers in the terms of why we want to be here. It's an excellent place, full of innovation, full of experiences, and full of wonderful teachers. And we need to be able to sell that to these new teachers as they come through. And at the same time, we want to be able to support those new teachers as they start this career. When it comes to the idea of alternative licensure, that is definitely something that we want to take advantage of. It's part of what we need. And just like my colleague said, it is important to be able to have somebody there versus a substitute, because there are cases that I've been involved in where students have substitutes for multiple years, and we don't want that for our students. We want the best for them.
And Dr. Ewing.
Obviously, I agree with both my colleagues. I think the first thing we have to do is you have to create a culture where people want to work here. They want to be here. They feel welcomed. They feel part of the community. They feel part of the family, if you will. We create that culture from the superintendent and from the administrators in the district, establishing what I call a positive climate and culture. As far as teacher certification, for the last 10 years, we've been hiring in my division many Spanish teachers who have degrees in Spanish but not degrees in education. They become wonderful teachers, but there's a caveat. They need a lot of help in the beginning. There has to be a lot of mentoring and a lot of coaching, and you have to have a support system in place. If you don't, then you begin to lose folks. And in education, if you read any journals, you'll see there's the 3-4-5 rule. Within 3 years, 1/3 of new people leave, and by the 5th year, 45% leave. So we don't want that to happen. We want folks to come here and be part of our district because we are the best district. We are the place where we want people to work because they feel valued and they feel welcomed.
The next question is, what is the one quality you would bring that uniquely makes you qualified for our district? And we begin with Dr. Rodriguez.
Well, that one quality to me is always knowing my why I do what I do. A lot of times people will tell you what they do, they'll tell you how they do it, but they forget why they do it. So the quality that I bring is one where students come first, families come first, employees our employees are our families as well. And so I think that the one quality I bring is that knowing and not forgetting where I came from and knowing where our students can go.
Dr. Romero.
One of the qualities I think that sets me apart from everyone up here on stage is that I have been a principal for over 15 years. I've been a successful principal. I've led schools to success, and in the end, that supports students. With this opportunity, I've also been able to become a better leader myself because of this opportunity. And because of this, I'm also able to allow others to become better leaders. I've had opportunities to work with superintendents and principals from all over the state to be able to develop their leadership skills with wonderful success. It's something that I'm very proud of, and it's something that I will definitely come back to Las Cruces and be able to do here in this district. Thank you.
Did we go through the cycle, or did Dr. Ewing, it's your turn, sorry.
Well, one of my colleagues jokes with me and says, when we want to fire someone, we want you to be the person to tell them, because at the end they're going to hug you and invite you to dinner after you've given the bad news. Why is that? Because I'm a motivator, because I'm a relationship builder. So I have a lot of energy, I have a lot of vested interest in working and making things better for anyone that's around me. But the most important thing is to be motivated. Motivate those around you. And you do that by making them feel comfortable and by making them feel successful. And that's what I try to do in my job every day.
And now we completed the cycle? I'm all mixed up on this last question, I'm sorry. Okay, our next question, and we're getting close on getting to the end, so we want to make sure we're sticking to a minute. What do you see as the 3 most important roles of the superintendent? Dr. Romero?
3 most important roles of being a superintendent is first to be a good listener. I need to be able to go out into the community and listen to all the different constituents, be able to gather that information as we move forward to make the best decisions for our district. The next area is to be transparent. This community deserves to know what's going on when it comes to decisions being made throughout this district, specifically the budget, policy, instruction, and that we move forward. And the last is to truly be a leader, to be able to lead this district to greatness. There are so many wonderful opportunities and possibilities in this district, and many times we just need that catalyst to be able to move forward, to align all those goals together, and I will be that person for you.
Dr. Ewing?
Again, I completely agree. I think the first thing is I've been reading about your district as I've been listening to folks today. 2 words come up constantly, and that is communication and transparency. You have to have both of those qualities. And then the third thing is when you talk about being a leader versus being a manager tells people what to do. A leader gets out of the way and lets them do it. And so for me, I think the most important thing you can do as a superintendent is trust the people you have hired. Step back and let them do what they were hired to do, and then you become that support person who gives them the resources they need, and you're the support that they can count on when something goes wrong.
Dr. Rodriguez?
So I think you asked what roles were to play as superintendent, correct?
3
The
most
3
important roles.
So the first is to be a champion for students, a champion for families. The second role is to be a lead learner. If I'm not learning, why do I expect other people to be learning? And finally, the last is to be a leader, and not a leader from the front, but a leader from behind. Those all are roles that I'm ready to fill, and most particularly the role of being an advocate for staff, an advocate for families, an advocate for students, and that it's going to take superintendents across this state getting involved in our political system to make a difference.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your thoughts about the community school model and the turnaround model? Do you feel one or the other would best benefit our district and all stakeholders? Dr. Ewing?
Again, I think that first you have to engage the stakeholders. It's not me that has to answer the question, it's the folks who are involved in the program who has to answer the question. So we have to ask the students who are using those models, the teachers who are teaching in those models, the parents who are giving us their students in those models. Are they working? Are they what's best for students? Are they producing graduates? Are they producing good cognitive learners? So the first thing I think you have to do is ask yourself, what are we doing right? What's working? What's not working? How can we fix it? How can we change it? I have no problem at all trying anything that's new, anything that's innovative, anything that might get us better results from what we're doing, as long as when we try that, we stop blaming the teacher for the test results. We go back to that basic form of good teaching always produces something good.
Dr. Rodriguez?
So when you think about the turnaround model, you have to ask yourself, turnaround from what? If we're basing our assumptions on a school needing to be turned around because of low test scores on Park, then that's a false assumption. So I would be more inclined to support community schools, schools that provide wraparound services for our students, schools that meet the needs, schools that provide community kitchens, schools that provide us with places for our families who are struggling to make ends meet, meet those needs at the end of the day, schools that provide after school and extended learning time, schools that again move into the summer and give us those opportunities for our students to make up those gaps that they may have. So you asked me which one I had to choose. I'd have to choose community schools.
And Dr. Romero?
Community schools is going to be a game changer in this school district. I'm very proud and honored to know that the school district is moving forward with this. We have it rolling out at one school site, and I am very much going to be supportive in expanding that program across the district. It is something that's going to help students really have equal access to many opportunities that other students don't have. And those are things just like having a safe place to go, being able to meet basic needs, being able to help with healthcare issues, being able to expose them to social issues that the community provides, being able to bring in those business partners throughout the district into the school site. So it's going to be a very important opportunity for our families in Las Cruces. When it comes to the turnaround model, what this really is this is really a collection of best practices. And we hear that term a lot when it comes to schools. What are those best practices that we use in classrooms? What are those best practices that we use in schools? And these best practices are meant to be able to make things simpler and easier and more efficient for schools, principals, and classroom teachers. So if we do this the right way, it can be very beneficial for them. Thank you.
And I think we're at the time where we have to let you have your minute of closing statement. We're going to begin with Dr. Rodriguez, 1 minute to tell us what you'd like us to know.
So I'd like for you to know that my vision that I hope to build with you answers that question that I asked earlier. So as a lead learner of Las Cruces Public Schools, I believe in the worth of our moral purpose to answer that question of what the highest hopes are for our children and what we expect as a result of their time in school. So my journey's led you here today. An 11 and a half hour drive to get here, but luckily this time I flew. So I'm here before you today to fully act on that purpose while working alongside with you to foster a sense of trust and mutual respect among all members of this community. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Dr. Romero?
I know that Las Cruces is a great place to live. I know that it's a great place to learn. After years of working here and getting to know its youth, its families, its staff, its schools, I feel extremely fortunate to interacted with very dedicated people here. Because of that, there are many things that I have come to know, to believe, and to hope. I believe that by working together, we can continue to make Las Cruces Public Schools a place where children can learn, grow, and thrive. I believe that we can continue to support one another in this very important work that is difficult but important to all of us. I believe that working together means that talking more and engaging each other in sometimes tough conversations about the challenges we face. In fact, I believe working together as a productive team is the only way that we can truly address the challenges we now face and the challenges we'll face in the future. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your evenings and away from your families to be here. This is an important decision as we move forward. Thank you.
And Dr. Ewing?
Well, again, thank you for allowing me to come here from Atlanta. As I reflect on my last day here with you and my time a couple of weeks ago, I looked at you only in my notebook, in the data that I had. And now today I've been able to spend the day with you. And as I spend the day with you, I begin to see you are exactly what I thought you were. You're what I thought you were 6, 7, 8 weeks ago when I applied for this position. So I think you have to ask yourself the question, what are you looking for in a leader? And so the qualities that I can bring to you is someone with 30 years of experience, 16 as a teacher, who then moved himself up through the ranks in the central office. And then beyond that, are you looking for a leader who's willing to take risks, who's willing to take a chance, who's willing to try something new? And are you looking for someone who's always going to be honest with you and transparent with you? You might not always like the message, but I'm always going to share the information with you. And so I close by saying, I really thank you. You've been most hospitable, and I've enjoyed this 11-hour day here with you. And I thank you and good night.
Thank you all, gentlemen. We know that the school board has a hard decision in front of them, but they want your feedback. So please fill out one of the evaluation forms. Let's give all of these gentlemen a big round of applause. We thank them for coming to Las Cruces, and we thank you for coming tonight. They did an amazing job. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.